Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com today. A 15-year-old boy murdered his parents and 3 of his siblings in a massacre that took place in Fall City, Washington.
A 15-year-old boy is due in court this morning to face these murder charges of his parents and 3 of his siblings. Carter Evans shows us how one victim survived and was able to tell police what she says happened.
4 days after a 15-year-old boy allegedly killed 5 of his family members inside their home, court documents reveal a harrowing aftermath. Police say the suspect called 911 out of breath and claimed that it was his 13-year-old brother, Benjamin Humiston, who had, quote, just shot my whole family and committed suicide, too.
The RP's now saying that the brother had shot at all the other family members.
But as that was happening, a second 911 call was coming in, one from a neighbor.
The sister who went to the neighbor's house is now saying that our caller is the one who was the shooter and was alive when she left the house.
According to investigators, the 11-year-old survived gunshots to her head and neck, pretended to play dead as the suspect stood over her, and then managed to escape through a fire window in her room, then running to the neighbor's house with a stunning allegation. She told police the suspect shot her and her family with a silver Glock handgun that belonged to their father. Authorities now say the 15-year-old staged the scene before police arrived so others would believe his younger brother Benjamin committed the murders and killed himself.
Has created a shadow over our town.
The murders have shocked the community, including Rhea Robertson, 9-year-old Joshua Humiston's soccer coach.
You're always smiling. All of the kids were always smiling.
After the initial court hearing Tuesday, the suspect's lawyer said, "We want the court to know that our client is a 15-year-old boy who enjoys mountain biking and fishing and has no criminal history." For CBS Mornings, I'm Carter Evans in Los Angeles.
Now, in this extremely disturbing incident which took place in an affluent area outside of Seattle called Fall City, Washington, 15-year-old Andrew Humiston allegedly was upset because he got in trouble with his parents over failing some tests and also looking at some pornography on the internet. And after getting into trouble with his parents, Andrew Humiston allegedly went into his father's bedroom, found the lockbox he kept his guns in, used the code that he had memorized to unlock that box, took out those firearms, and allegedly used them to participate in a massacre where he murdered his mother and father and 3 of his siblings and wound up wounding an 11-year-old sister. And after participating in this massacre of his entire family, Andrew Humiston then decided to call 911 and say that his 13-year-old brother participated in this massacre. And after saying that his 13-year-old brother participated in this massacre, he hoped to be able to get away with this crime of murdering his entire family. However, one of the sisters he had shot was 11 years old, played dead, and as she played dead, she eventually, after Andrew Humiston was making the call, got out of the house, went to a neighbor's house, and contacted 911. And after she contacted 911 and told them what really happened, this is where the police wound up arresting 15-year-old Andrew Humiston for participating in the massacre of his entire family. Now, the police in Fall City, Washington, see the alleged behavior of Andrew Humiston as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the disturbing behavior that Andrew Humiston has been alleged to participate in, it definitely fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, and it also fits the pattern and profile of behavior I talk about regarding children of the corn in my book, The Woman Crisis. And it's clear to me that Andrew Humiston possibly was one of these children of the corn who, even though he grew up in an affluent family, was growing up like a stalk, with no sense of discipline, structure, or order. And because he grew up with no sense of discipline, structure, or order, he really did not understand how to deal with conflict from authority figures like his parents, as he got into trouble that every adolescent basically gets into. Now, in the case of Andrew Humiston, it was alleged that he wound up getting into trouble with his parents for going and failing some tests in school, and also looking at some pornography on the internet. And while these behaviors are just basic natural behaviors for adolescents, his response to this entire situation fits a very disturbing trend as related to behavior that I've been seeing from adolescents over the last couple of years, where whenever they are challenged by an authority figure, they wind up escalating their behavior to antisocial behaviors. And as they escalate their behavior to antisocial behaviors, they take things to extremes in order to keep their world smooth instead of learning how to resolve conflict. Now, in the case of Andrew Humiston, what he did was, after he wound up getting into trouble for failing these tests and looking at pornography on the internet, instead of him just taking the punishment like any other adolescent would do in this situation and then move on with his life, what he did was go out here and take things to extremes, looking to make his world smooth, where he believed he would have no problems, conflicts, or obstacles in his life if he got rid of his parents and his family. And that just shows how this beta male was in a place where he was completely disconnected from his family and detached from his family with no love or care for them. And that's basically possibly because he was in a home where he was not really getting his needs met as related to his family, and possibly as a middle child or older. Well, he was looking like the eldest child, feeling forgotten. And again, this had him simmering and boiling with a lot of anger and seething with a lot of anger, and angry because he couldn't get his way, one, and angry because he couldn't keep his world smooth, because when it comes to beta males, oftentimes when they look at things like pornography, they're starting to enter a place I call the secret world where they feel safe about expressing their natural masculinity and their natural sexuality. And when these men's secret world gets exposed, that's when these men start to get violent, because people now know the truth about them. And as people know the truth about them, these men feel ashamed and embarrassed, and they feel the only way to make their world smooth is to go out here and destroy the lives of the people in their life who know all about the things that they have been doing. And that possibly could have been one of the motives for Andrew Humiston participating in this, again, just evil act as I see it. I mean, when I look at his behavior, he basically is looking like one of these beta males who, again, is scared that, if people find out that he isn't perfect, because beta males always want to keep up a perfect outside, but they want to have a secret world where they can go out here and explore all of their what they consider to be bad behaviors. And with this whole exposure of Andrew Humiston not being perfect, this is what I believe motivated him to participate in this whole series of murders. And this whole series of murders just shows you the extremes that beta males will go to make their world smooth, and just show you how these men are extremely have depraved indifference to people, even in their own family, because to them, people aren't people. People are objects, because they really don't have a personal connection to anyone. No, they don't have a personal connection to anyone, and the only way they see people is as a part of what they need for their convenience. And if those people are not meeting whatever needs they have, they have no problems or no qualms about taking their lives. And that really showed with the depraved way that Andrew Humiston went out here and murdered his family. Then, after murdering his family, he had complete malice aforethought as he went out here and intentionally lied to 911 operators, trying to pin the murders on his 13-year-old brother, wanted to pin the murders on his 13-year-old brother, and thought he was going to get away with doing this and making his world smooth, because in his whole idea he had in his head, he was going to murder his family, pin it all on his brother, and then go out here and make it like he was the sole survivor. And again, this is the idea he had in his head in the secret world. This is what he had planned in his head, but the reality felt wound up making that whole plan fall apart because one, he had wounded his sister and she was able to tell the story. Moreover, law enforcement would have been able to easily figure out the story once they had done their own forensic evidence and done their own forensic research, because what this 15-year-old didn't know was that when you fire a gun, you leave gunpowder residue on your hands, and that gunpowder residue that is there can easily be found even if you wash your hands by just applying some chemicals to a person's hands, and that will tell us that a firearm has been shot. That was one thing he didn't understand. The other thing he didn't understand was that people would also look at the way the shots were fired and see how those shots were fired, but that didn't matter to this beta male, who basically, as I see it, was a sociopath, because to again murder your entire family, then look to lie and put it on your brother, shows how this boy was extremely antisocial and downright evil for an extended period of time, as I see it. I mean, this is a boy who was basically a sociopath and had no regard for human life, because only a person who has no regard for people or no regard for people's lives will go out here and murder people over something as trivial as punishments. But that's the way a sociopath thinks, because a sociopath has no sort of remorse for their actions and no real care for other people. And when I look at Andrew Humiston's behavior, it fits a very disturbing trend I'm seeing emerge as related to this man crisis and even this woman crisis, of not only these shooters getting younger, but these shooters showing how little regard they have for human life, because Andrew Humiston's case basically comes just a few weeks after another shooter, Carly Madison Gregg, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and she was sentenced for life in prison for the murder of her mother and attempted murder of her stepfather, all because her mother went into her bedroom and decided to search for vape cartridges and marijuana, which Carly Gregg had been smoking for an extended period of time. And because this teenager was rebelling and her parents were looking to hold her accountable, she believed that that was a justification for murdering her mother and attempting to murder her stepfather. And the same thing happens here with Andrew Humiston. Here's yet another boy who child who basically is out here. His parents are trying to give him discipline and structure, and because he doesn't understand what discipline and structure are, because his parents possibly didn't give him that discipline at an early age, what happened is that this child, because this child is being held accountable, and he feels angry at his parents because they're not letting him be able to go out here and do whatever he pleases. And that's what his motivation is for murdering his parents and his family, because he believes that if he takes the lives of his family for exposing the truth about him not being perfect, this is how he can make his world smooth once more. And that just shows you that this man crisis and this woman crisis is getting progressively worse, and getting progressively worse because we're seeing how this complete collapse of the family is not only leading to us having children of the corn who are growing up like stalks and growing up wild. What these children are turning into, because they are not getting any sort of structure or order from their families, is they're turning into violent sociopaths, and violent sociopaths with no regard for human life, because no one has gone out here and cared for them. And since no one has cared for them, they don't care about anyone else. And that's what makes these children of the corn some of the most evil children to ever come up. I mean, this is what's troubling here, is we're seeing a trend with these children. I mean, we started to see it with Peyton Gendron, who went out here and participated in the mass shooting at the Buffalo Tops supermarket, who again was sitting there on the internet learning how to hate black people. We see it with the other one, Ethan Crumbley, whose parents enabled his antisocial and sociopathic behavior by buying him a firearm. And we also saw it with the kid who was, I think his name was Colt something. He also was out here participating in antisocial behavior And many of these parents basically are sitting here enabling antisocial behavior in their children and are not noticing that this is antisocial behavior. I mean, this is antisocial behavior I'm seeing in these children because we have no family unit to give them any sort of structure, any sort of order. And this is all due to the fact that we put children in places like daycare from an early age. And as they're raised in daycare, they don't bond with their mothers or learn to care about people, because if mom cares about them, they will care about people. But what we're seeing, because they're put in daycare, is that the kids grow up to become these antisocial individuals, and these antisocial individuals are detached and disconnected from people. And as they're detached and disconnected from people, they don't see human beings as other people they need to regard. No, they see people as objects in the way of them getting their way and having their world the way that they want. And anyone who disagrees with them, they believe they have a right to take their life. This is the mindset that has been, again, ingrained and programmed in these children of the corn. And what's really scary is that these children of the corn are basically everywhere, and their behavior is escalating to these extremes as related to these crimes. That's what's happening here. And again, this is not a crime that was done out of poverty. This was a crime, basically, this guy basically was rich and had lots of money. I mean, he came from a wealthy family. He was living in a very affluent part of town in a 4-story mansion near the lake. He was living very well, and his reasons for going out here and committing these crimes were not because he was in desperate need of anything. No, it was the only reason why he murdered his family, because he just was upset that they found out that he had gone out here and participated in some really bad behavior. I mean, failing tests in and of itself is not really bad. It's just a part of life. But this boy never learned how to have that resolve to be able to say, hey, you gotta persevere and be able to overcome adversity. I mean, yeah, we fail tests. I failed tests. I've even failed classes in school. It's all part of life. But these kids are not being taught that, okay, it's okay to fail and you just go out here and try again. No, kids are not being taught this. And as a result of them not being taught this, what they're learning is how a sociopath operates, which is when something goes wrong, you destroy the people around you in order to keep people from seeing your mistakes. And that's the way a sociopath thinks. And that's the way this boy was sitting there thinking, oh, they found out I failed some tests. They found out I was looking at some porn on the internet. This is where a parent sits down and lets their son know, okay, yeah, you failed some tests. Well, you just go out here and you just try a little harder and you just study a little more. We'll get you some tutors if you need them. And as related to internet porn, yeah, that's just something that boys are going to do because they're curious about sex and sexuality. And again, this is what happens with these kind of boys. They enter the secret world to look at this pornography, and they feel ashamed that people found out that they're sexual, and they don't understand that being sexual is normal for every human being. And because these boys feel shame, what they do is participate in looking to destroy everybody around them instead of being told to understand that this is just a perfectly normal part of things. I mean, boys are going to be curious and look. Even girls are going to look at adult entertainment. There's nothing anyone can do about that. And again, the way you deal with that situation isn't to be harsh, but to try to teach and let them know that these images are not real and there's just a fantasy made up. That's how you help your children, and you help them understand that, okay, this is something that you did, but we're going to work through this. But many parents today, they are so hands-off, they don't really want to take that time to sit down and talk to their children, sit down and talk to their children and let them know what's going on. But sometimes I have to wonder if talking to these children would work, because like in the case of Carly Gregg, this boy looks like another antisocial, sociopathic individual. And I'm seeing again that trend as related to not only him and Carly Gregg, but with Ethan Crumbley and also the boy, I think his name was Colt Stevens. I don't know. Oh, Colt Gray. His name was Colt Gray. And again, all these children showing a pattern of behavior that's really coming out of the pandemic, I believe, because in the last 4 years, we've come out of the pandemic. We had these kids coming out of these lockdowns, and one of the things that's come out of the lockdowns that I saw coming before the government proposed these lockdowns was it was going to have a disastrous impact on people's mental health. It was going to have a disastrous impact on children's development, because when you have people isolated for an extended long time, what it does is it leads to people being unable to participate in antisocial behaviors and believe that they have a justification to participate in these antisocial behaviors. And that's what I believe happened here with this boy as related to his situation. And sadly, this 15-year-old boy wound up murdering his family, and again, is now on his own. I mean, Andrew Humiston, while he was out here looking to sate his feelings for a moment, is now going to deal with decisions he's going to regret for a lifetime, because he's now in the custody of law enforcement. And as he's in the custody of law enforcement, he's going to go from being under the authority of his parents to the authority of the COs. And if he's convicted of all these murders, what's going to happen to Andrew Humiston is he's going to go from being in the home with his family, social pecking order, to the social pecking order of Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and is going to have to be, after he's charged as an adult and given life in prison, going to have to deal with Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, teaching him life lessons as they trade him for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light tea, Taster's Choice coffee, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand Duplex cookies, off-brand ginger snaps, off-brand vanilla wafers, off-brand fruit punch, off-brand orange drink, off-brand lemon lime drink, off-brand grape drink, off-brand apple juice, Fritos chips, packets of sriracha sauce, packets of soy sauce, packets of honey mustard, packets of salt and pepper, packets of sweet and low. I mean, and packing and trading them off for, again, Fritos chips and other things as he learns how to make bricks and make all sorts of prison recipes. And that's what's going to happen to him in the penitentiary, as he's going to have to deal with these guys basically trading him, and then Mr. Sprinkles coming in, spraying the special sauce, then splitting him open and making him look like his backside looking like the inside of Louisiana crunch cake. And again, that's what happens when to guys who go out here and participate in these kind of crimes. They wind up on a horrible road. But what's even more horrifying than that is the state of affairs as related to the American family. As related to the state of affairs of the American family, we have a complete collapse of the American family. And instead of our children growing up to become healthy children, what they're growing up to become are children of the corn. And these children of the corn are basically all out here growing up like stalks, and learning how to participate in antisocial behavior. But America doesn't want to talk about this problem, because we don't want to go out here and change the way we work in this country to a slower work rate to get productivity as related to our families, and we don't want to hold mothers accountable for the way that they're raising their children, because the way we've been raising children under feminism with these daycare centers and places where kids are not really at home with their mom is that they're learning to become disconnected and detached from people, and that's leading to this trend of antisocial children of the corn who are growing up to become men and women in crisis, men and women in crisis who are basically landmines in their families' homes. And many families don't know that they've got a sociopath among them, don't know that they have a sociopath in their home, a sociopath who basically has no regard for human life, has no regard to care for anyone, because nobody has cared for them. And again, we're seeing a pattern with these children, a pattern, again, where I talked about at the aftermath of Peyton Gendron, that we're seeing the ages of these killers getting younger and younger. And sadly, nobody in America wants to acknowledge this whole situation with this man crisis getting progressively worse, because when you've got children participating in antisocial behavior, that's a sign that your society is deteriorating, and it's deteriorating because we don't have a family. And we don't have a family because back in the 1940s or the 1930s, the wealthy said we did not need fathers in the home, and mom could go out here and work, and TV could raise the children. And sadly, as TV has raised the children, and violent video games have raised children, and all sorts of content has raised children, we're getting Children of the Corn without any sort of moral position, Children of the Corn without any sort of discipline or structure, Children of the Corn without any sort of understanding to love or care for another human being. And that's what we're getting these days with these Children of the Corn that basically spawn out of the man and woman crisis in this country. Children of the Corn who have no regard for human life because no one regarded their life to go out here and give these children the care that they needed when they were young and basically could be trained up in the way that they needed to go. That's what these children aren't getting. And again, people don't see how everything is cause and effect, especially those in the wealthy circles like this one. They'll see this as an isolated incident, but not connect the dots to see that this is them reaping what they sowed, later than what they sowed, greater than what they sowed, for destroying the American family and receiving the benefits from destroying the American family. And that's what we're seeing right now with these Children of the Corn who are basically participating in evil acts that just should disturb you all around, because when you have a 15-year-old who believes that the way you resolve conflict is by taking a gun and murdering your family, there's something wrong with that child as related to understanding conflict resolution, because healthy kids, again, I'll repeat it once more, understand that, hey, if you go out here and look at some internet porn or you fail some tests, this is not how you go out here and resolve the conflict. No, you go out here and you learn to persevere and continue to push. And in the case of the internet porn, you just learn that it's just completely fake and it's not real. That's what a father sits down and talks to his son and shows him love. And hopefully that love will help that boy grow up to become a healthy man and not a man in crisis like this one that I'm talking about in this video. Now, if you want to learn how to identify the behavior of beta males and what leads to them participating in this antisocial and violent behavior and prevent that child from going down a road to self-destruction, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to learn how children become Children of the Corn, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target as well. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about the Man Crisis and the Woman Crisis, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, subscribe. Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.